Jon, you ready to get this podcast going?
Let's do this.
All right, Jon.
We are back.
Finally, after like 3 years.
God, has it been that long?
We're doing a podcast again. Yeah, it has been that long.
It feels different. It feels a lot different. I'm used to sitting next to you or across from you.
Yeah.
And now, obviously with the way the world is, having everything be remote is taking a little bit of getting used to, but it's good to see you again.
Yeah, I appreciate that you built a wood wall in your
That's
house
right.
just for the podcast.
Well, it's because I missed you. Frankly, I haven't seen you in forever, and I would just sit and think about the wall that was, where we would record, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna repeat it. I'm gonna make it so that I feel closer to my friend Nick.
So, for those who are familiar, who maybe used to listen, and let's be honest, if you're watching episode 1 of this podcast, there's a good chance you used to listen to our old podcast, which was called the Mad Podcast at the time,
right?
And we did that for a couple of years, 2-3 years.
Yeah. Had developed tens of dozens of fans.
Hey, at one point, there was that fluke little subcategory where we were #1 in all of India.
That's right. That's right.
For like a month. Just like, dude, I'm getting a really weird metric here.
Yeah, don't discount the Indian market. I'll tell you that. We were strong.
I'm gonna stay with them. For sure.
That's right.
But yeah, I don't know why we got really popular in India for like a couple weeks.
Yep.
We must have been the only podcast in that category.
I'm taking it.
I do.
I'm riding that wave.
Jon, I'm a millennial. Okay. I'll take my ribbon.
That's right.
I don't care.
That's right.
I don't care why you give me a ribbon. I'll pin it up.
Yeah. I'll frame it, put it on the wall.
Yeah. So obviously we never actually meant to stop doing a podcast.
No.
Just life happened. We were just talking about this today. Like, what happened? Why did we stop? We got out of the rhythm. You had your wife birthed another human.
Yes, I didn't, but yeah, you're right. She did. We had a daughter. That was a big life event. Started a new job. We moved. I think you started another job.
A couple of times, but
a couple of times. Okay. So yeah, things happen.
As I tend to do. I did. I like to say this as if I like serve time in like the prison system. Like, look, I did 3 years in public education.
Right.
And so obviously we'll talk about that in future shows, but
yes, my
experience as a public education, as a high school teacher, teaching business and marketing for about 3 years.
Yep.
And, so we've certainly had a lot of different things happening.
Right.
Apparently there was something over the last year and a half. There's some big event. It was based on that board game, Pandemic.
Oh, Pandemic.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was like a real world simulation of
that
board
shook
game.
Things up a little bit. I think maybe that had some impact on, our ability to connect. Let's say.
Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, we've missed doing this, and
that's right.
And let's be honest, Jon. If there's anything that this world has been needing more of, I would say that it is the points of view of 2 middle-aged, middle-class, straight white men.
I would absolutely agree with that. I think there's a lot going on in the world today, and it is the opinion of the straight white male that is missing. And so
it's an underrepresented,
at the very least, underrepresented. Sure. And so, here we are. I think it's perfect timing to heal the nation, frankly, with our opinions.
Jon, look, correlation is not causation, right? We stopped podcasting and the world fell apart.
Oh, that's right.
I'm not saying that it was the lack of our opinions that caused all of that to happen.
That's right.
But the facts are that we stopped podcasting.
World fell apart.
Like those are just 2 true statements.
It's
when
like
you put
the joke
side by side.
That's right.
Might be a bit of a stretch.
It's like the joke. I'm not saying I'm Batman, but you've never seen me and Batman in the same room together. That's exactly it. And that's, so I'm not agree. I'm not saying that's, what it is, but we are just speaking facts right now.
Sure. So those that were familiar with the old Mad podcast, you'll notice there's a new name on this show. We just went with the Jon and Nick show. We thought long, we thought hard. We thought, what should we call this show?
Right.
Jon, why didn't we go with the Mad podcast again? I'm sure there's people, our dozens of listeners are wondering.
Well, here's again, I don't want to overstate this, but I think we're just spitting facts right now. We were so popular, especially again in the India market, that I think as soon as we paused, right, on the actual podcasting and started to let a little bit of a lapse of new content, because that's what everybody cares about today, is
three and a half years.
Get us the new content. Yeah, but I think we're talking 2 weeks. We made it a week without letting out a new episode, and the sharks were circling the waters.
Oh, that's
true. What I mean? It was people out there saying, hey, these guys are it. And the name is, I don't know if the kids say this today, Fire, right?
Fire AF, Jon.
Fire AF.
Yes.
And so frankly, when we said, hey, let's pick this back up and give this another go, the name was I don't want to say taken, because I think that's underselling it. It's frankly overused at this point.
It really is.
Yeah, and I believe we have some examples of that we can take a look at here.
We do. Let's add those into the stream here. So here's the first. Here's just 3. Okay, we're going to show you 5. There were more, but these were a lot of these here, and these were I just took these on my cell phone, so it's not like the best images of these. But the first one, that the MAD podcast, that's literally like abbreviated MAD. That was literally what we did. I have no idea what their Mad podcast stands for.
Looking at the fist in the air and like the frown for the guy, I'm gonna say they're acting like, oh, we're really mad. You know what I mean? We're gonna talk about things that make us mad.
Could be. And again, well, I'm looking at 2 straight white males. Well, I don't know straight. I guess I don't know. Definitely 2 more white males using the Mad podcast names here. So I don't know
in the list.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at now the second one, the Mad podcast, mergers and acquisitions deals.
Mergers, acquisitions, and deals.
Yeah, dude, that actually sounds pretty dope. I'm kind of interested in that one. I saw that and I was like, doggone it, dude's using that name we had. And then I was like, well, that's kind
subscribe.
Like, subscribe, and leave a positive comment. So I don't know. Let's just say Sean Tool's on my playlist for this week.
Okay. All right. Make a Difference podcast. I actually like their logo. I like their colors, and I like their messaging. If that's a podcast that's about making a difference, I'm just saying I'm happy to have been a part of inspiring that.
Absolutely.
With what we did.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
they'll never make but the best.
They'll never make as much of a difference as stop podcasting and then a global pandemic. It happens.
That's right.
And
that's right. Yeah.
All the things that have happened over the last couple of years. But hey, I'm sure on some small, inconsequential level, they'll be able to make a difference too.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you get people that hit a certain level of celebrity, let's say, of status, and then they spend their time trying to keep other people down. And then you have others that reach a level of status and they use their platform to lift up those that are following in their footsteps. I like to think of myself as the latter. And so I wish nothing but the best for all of these podcasts.
So here's where it gets a little bit more little more on the nose from what we used to do. Okay. Full on middle-aged dads, Mad podcast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's just blatant ripping off.
That's literally what our thing stood for.
Yeah. That was middle-aged dads. I don't know how I feel about the spatula. Yeah. I mean, is it wrong of me to say that most middle-aged dads likely aren't the ones cooking?
I don't know.
Well,
grilling, I guess the grilling thing.
Okay.
I mean, that seems to be
be a
like
grill, right?
That's like dude culture, I guess.
I actually feel bad saying that because one of the things that I've done over the pandemic has been learn how to cook, and it's been like one of my favorite things to do after work to unwind. So now
Mine too.
I feel bad making fun of it.
I love it, dude. I'll put on a podcast and I just like
That's right.
Go to town.
Yeah.
I'll spend an hour making something and then 5 or less minutes eating it. And
I also like to think of the next one when we go into mother and daughter as though somebody looked at middle-aged dad's podcast and said, no, we need more representation on the mother and daughter opinion, not middle-aged dad. Like it was a combat or whatever. It's a challenge,
sure,
right? It's
sure.
Looking at it as no, we need to make sure we are represented and not just middle-aged dads.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because it's like, I'm assuming these people are looking at this going, there's way too much straight white male middle-aged dad opinion out there. So
now
we're just going to take this now. And
that's right. Put I don't
some
want
feminism into it.
That's one of the things that people may need more of, but I don't want to perpetuate stereotypes or anything here. But I would normally, if I say that means I do want to perpetuate.
This is a little out of character for me to say.
That's right. It's very unlike me to have an opinion on something like this. But I look at the logo. I mean, look at the difference. Look at the middle-aged dads podcast there. Look at the mother and daughter podcast. And all I'm saying, take it however you want. If I was paying for these logos, I would pay $1 for the middle-aged dads podcast. I'd probably only pay about 75 cents for the mother and daughter one. I'm saying I think that the quality that you're getting out of the mother and daughter podcast is worth about 75% what the middle-aged dad podcast is. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe in this unique specific situation, you're saying you would warrant a pay gap.
If you want to call it, because one is obviously dads, one's mother and daughter. If you want to call it like a gender gap, however you'd want to refer to it, I'm saying in this case, I think it's obviously warranted, and it makes sense why.
Oh, that's messed up. There's both of these logos are way worse than the one that we had, but
100%.
You know what? At the end of the day, we thought let's just call it the Jon and Nick show, and so that's why you're just going to see this kind of branding. We just, you know what? We thought, who are we really as people, Jon?
Yeah,
and you know who we are. We're a couple of 80s babies and 90s kids
and 90s influenced kids.
Yeah. So you know what? At the end of the day, as we gripe about people stealing our idea, who, let's be honest, they had no idea we existed. You know what? We basically stole Saved by the Bell's vibe
100%
and branded our show with
it. Did we steal it or do like are we entitled to it because that was our childhood, right? Everything that you're looking at there was
not only was Saved by the Bell our childhood, but Jon, I'm pretty sure Saved by the Bell was like spot on representation of what my like school experience was like.
Yeah. I agree. It was like watching a documentary.
Having grown up in North Portland in the 90s. I mean, I'm sure you often feel like, yeah. What was the name of the diner that they'd always go to?
Now you can't hit me with trivia because I have no idea.
In my mind, the first thing I wanted to say was the Peach Pit. And I was like, no, that was that other show.
I can't remember what I did last week, much less the diner and Saved by the Bell.
But I'm sure you and your friends like hung out. I mean, for us, it was called the Hemlock Store. And I'm pretty sure it was just a meth lab upstairs that like laundered money through selling like, you know, pizza pockets and gum to school-aged children, such as myself. But I mean, it was pretty much exactly like that diner that they'd all go hang out at.
Yeah, I agree. So no, I like it. I like the new name, the new aesthetic. You know, it reminds me, there's a video. We've not talked about it, so I know we don't have it queued up or anything, but I would encourage people to go watch it. It was kind of funny. Vanilla Ice weighed in on this topic recently and said the reason people are so like obsessed with the 90s lately is because that's the last era that anything cool was created. And I think there's, you know, there's some truth to it. And so, you know, it definitely means a lot to us growing up in that era. And so I think it's a good fit for what we're doing here today.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I like that. It's the last era that anything cool, as we live stream a podcast over broadband.
That's right. Well, he had made a point. I did genuinely, not to rabbit trail too much, but watch it at some point, or maybe we'll bring it up on the next episode. But it was something like, after that, the internet was created, and it seemed like all of the inspirations of the 90s and these big things like Air Jordans, right? It's like it didn't ever get better than that. And the internet, while it made it, you know, everything accessible to everybody, it seemed like the new pop culture creations were getting stifled. And you go into the stores today and it's still Air Jordans. You know, you have other basketball players, but LeBron James isn't selling shoes the way Michael Jordan did. And so it's this concept of like, no, that was like, you know, arguably the greatest era as it relates to pop culture. And so that's why I think it had such an impact on us, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I'm a almost 40-year-old now. I'm rocking a Nirvana shirt, right? Like, and my son has a nearly identical shirt. And
yes, of course.
Gotten super into. So that's another thing that's happened since we last podcasted. Both my kids are teenagers now.
Oh, that's crazy.
And that's created. Crazy. That's a whole different. Yeah, there'll be plenty of content for this show based on having teenagers.
On that alone.
All right. So from time to time, so we do different segments. If you're new to this show, you're just checking us out. We don't really have a set format that we always stick to. Sometimes as we start getting some shows in the can and we start getting a little bit of following, we'll probably bring back listener mail, I would imagine.
Sure.
That's always fun. It's where people can ask us questions or just say something, or some people used to just like want to get us like to just make fun of certain things or just go off on things. One of the segments we like to do from time to time is just take a look at some of like the current events, things that are happening.
Right.
And so we're going to do that right now with sticking with this 90s theme. You've got news, which, John, I don't have an animated thing for that, but mark my words, at some point, I'm going to make an animated video for this You've Got News segment. I mean,
now that we've aired it, it's probably going to happen tonight, because Nick won't be able to stop thinking about it. And so, yeah, it's going to happen sooner than later.
It definitely will drive me nuts. So
that's right.
Taking a look at some of the hard hitting current events.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's pop culture, but I wanted today, John, I wanted to get into something that's a little bit more weighty, something that's significant.
I like that.
And so I found an article on Market Watch.
Okay.
You're familiar with Market Watch, right?
I'm incredibly familiar with Market Watch. Would you like to know a little bit about them?
I would love to, John. Thank you for offering that up.
Listen, here's a little about Market Watch from their site directly. Market Watch tracks the pulse of markets for engaged investors with more than 20 million visitors per month. The site is a leading innovator in business news, personal finance information, real-time commentary, and investment tools and data, with dedicated journalists generating hundreds of headlines, stories, videos, and market briefs a day from bureaus in the US and Europe. Okay, so tell me, if you're looking for serious news, okay, that has actual impact on the markets of the US and Europe, this is the place where you want to go. All right.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited to see what you have cooked up for us from Market Watch today.
And thank you for teeing that up completely unprompted and spontaneously.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not like we had a pre-production meeting and
No,
talked about any of this ahead of
there's
time.
no agenda here. We're just going with it.
Thank you for having that. So that being said, I found something that I thought was pretty significant on Market Watch. And so obviously that would have to do with Joe Exotic and the Tiger King star, John.
Yes.
I imagine like the timing of this, that documentary when it came out on Netflix right at the start of the pandemic when everything was locking down, couldn't have been better. That was a train wreck of a show. And yet I watched it. I was riveted.
In all of the divisiveness that existed, and I guess in large part still exists in the world today, this was a unifying force for sure. Yeah. It brought people together. It reached across party lines, and it pulled communities together so that they could agree on one thing. And it was that this is an absolute train wreck and everybody hates Carol Baskins.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, and it was so funny too, because like as I was watching those, I was like, man, this guy is getting launched. This hit it at the right time. This guy's going to be a huge star. And then you get to the end, and like, I don't mean to spoiler alert, but if you haven't seen it by now, I mean, we're literally we're literally spoiling it with this article here.
Yeah.
Joe Exotic was in prison by the time this thing even came out, and it was like,
that's right.
Oh man, like all this guy ever wanted was to be famous. And when he's finally famous, his 15 minutes come, he's locked up in prison and can't do like interviews and stuff.
Well, it turns out when you pay somebody money to murder another human being, there's consequences for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Allegedly.
I mean, not now. Now he's convicted.
Well, that's true. Convictedly.
That's convictedly. Convictedly. Hey, there's consequences. So,
so the article here is just about, when I first saw it, I was like, whoa, I was like, no way, he's getting set free. Cause it says appeals court overturns Tiger King Joe Exotic's sentence in murder for hire case.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, he's going to be hitting the streets. But then I actually read the article,
which is probably more than 95% of the American population would do today. So
100%.
Kudos to you for that.
And so, I mean, all that got overturned was his sentencing. He's still convicted.
That's right.
He's not going to get to come out and have, Tiger King season 2 or anything like that.
Nope.
It just had to do with what was his sentence, John? How many years was it?
I think it says on there, it was a 22-year prison sentence. And that's the federal appeals court has thrown out the sentence for Joe Exotic in his 2019 murder for hire conviction, where he paid somebody $3,000 to kill Carol Baskins.
Yeah. Which, I mean, obviously that all happened before the show came out.
That's right.
I think after the show, I think there probably would have been some people who would have like maybe offered a discount on that. There was a lot of like people that did not like her.
Well, yeah. So at the end of the day, though, there's really two jokes here. One is that Market Watch is even reporting on this. Yeah. Like it has anything to do with the markets today. And so when they say there's hundreds of journalists or dedicated journalists bringing hundreds of headlines, they apparently mean it. Like anything and everything is going to be reported. So take that for what it's worth next time you're perusing Market Watch. But then the other one is just highlighting to me how dumb we are as a culture today. And it's not even to say that I didn't fall for the same thing, right? Because when you read it and you see that the sentence was overturned, right? You immediately think, oh gosh, he's free, Yeah. And like you said, great, season 2 coming out finally.
Which I guess would make sense with Market Watch if he was getting out, because Netflix, their stock price would have gone up if they announced, a follow-up with Joe Exotic, right?
That's right. That's
and a loose grab at that being
would have made more sense.
Yeah.
But the humor to me is how when you go to that article on any real social media platform, you see people freaking out about Joe Exotic being released from prison as though he didn't commit this horrible crime. Right. Yeah. And it just highlights that we're just dumb. We're dumb as a culture, and we don't read past headlines anymore, or at least 95% of us don't. So I'm glad you did in this case, but that's the part that just absolutely drives me crazy about our environment today.
I agree. And naturally, I love a good train wreck. So I had to read through the comments. I was more interested in the comments to this than anything else. And so I screen grabbed a couple of these. I like somebody, how about these animal abuse charges? The actual murders he committed?
Yeah, which what she's getting at is he did kill animals, and it's like
100%.
Yeah, that's a fact, but she's alluding to that as though like he should still be in jail for that, at least, if he's going to be released.
And she clearly didn't read the article.
That's right. Because who needs to today?
Jon, I'm mature enough to admit that I'm immature enough to at times just constantly read the actual article in the comments when I get bored. Just read the article. Read the article. Read the article.
I've made the mistake of trying to actually reply to some of these things with not just read the article. Like, I'm not even trying to lead the horse to water.
You tried to get logical, didn't you?
Yes, and it's such a wasted effort. I mean, spending any time arguing on the internet is just going to kill brain cells. There's no other way around it.
I like this one here. Carol is the one that should be in jail.
This is hilarious.
Like, people hated her. Like, they painted her in such a negative light. And obviously she like cashing in on these animals and all this stuff. 100%. It did look like she treats them better than Joe Exotic did. And I know that there was accusations there. And obviously hey, if they found her husband's bones buried on her property, you wouldn't see a look of shock on my face. I don't know if she did or not, but the documentary definitely kind of painted you into that corner a little bit of thinking that that's possible.
But listen,
man, people hated her.
If you want, legal advice or some sort of legal weigh-in, then I think it's appropriate that you ask a couple of guys that have no degrees in law, right? But so that being said, I'm happy to chime in. Carol Baskins. Carol is annoying, and I think that we all agree with that. Anybody that watches the Netflix
all you
documentary,
cool cats and kittens.
she's super annoying. None of us like her, and again, it points to the absolute astounding stupidity that exists in our culture today, because there's this hands across America after watching the documentary that Joe Exotic, Tiger Joe, whatever he goes by, should be free because people love how wacky and zany and just out there he is, even though he actually committed a crime and tried to hire somebody to murder another human being. And yet this other person, Carol, who all of the things that we all think happened, frankly, are alleged, right? Acts. We don't know. And so at the end of the day, she's super annoying, but we don't really have proof that any real crime has been committed. Doesn't matter, because the court of popular opinion is they're on the case, and Joe should be free and she should be in jail. And it makes absolutely no sense to me. And it just highlights we're all just dumb. We're just dumb.
I feel like some of the people who were sympathetic to Joe's trial and all that, I think they felt like, at least in that documentary, that partner, that person that kind of took over that whole animal place, that he kind of pushed him towards it, and he was kind of manipulating him a little bit. And I mean, Jon, at the end of the day, who hasn't accidentally gotten caught up in a murder for hire?
That's right. That's right.
I mean,
that's right.
Who am I to judge?
Well, and let's be real. I mean, if I found out that you had some sort of arch enemy or nemesis that existed, and you guys were just at each other's throats, and I thought that you were thinking about paying somebody to murder that person, I can't say I wouldn't encourage you to do it. Right? Right? I can't say I'm any better than this guy. I mean,
until you're in that situation, do you really know?
Do you really know what you're capable of?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, John, there was somebody who actually read the article, and I almost left her name up. I was like, she should be champion.
Right.
She's like, hey, hero. He's not going free. He's just being resentenced.
She's the hero that we all needed.
But my favorite comment was the one that you and I were thinking the whole time, which is, why is this on Market Watch?
Why is this on Market Watch? And I gotta say, it gives me hope not only that he and she would state these opinions, but that he had 6 other people that agreed with that.
I know.
That liked his comment. Like, I mean, hey, we're a minority right now in the population today. I guess we should say the social media population today.
Sure. But
I think maybe we're growing, right? There's sign and there's hope that other people are going to start applying some critical thinking to their opinions.
It made me think about, remember right before Trump left office, and there was like rumors that he was going to pardon Joe Exotic.
Yes.
And there was
Dude,
like that. What was it?
He got all excited. He got all excited and he like rented out a limo.
A limo!
And it was like a limo truck or something. I remember seeing all the photos of it like parked outside the jail waiting for him to. Oh man, you couldn't write something like that.
And then and so I wondered if like he heard, hey, your sentencing has been overturned, and he's probably like, get the limo, I'm free.
Probably, he orders another one,
and they're like, you know what, you didn't read the article, did you, Joe?
That's right.
You're staying here.
Yeah. In fact, your sentencing might even just be longer. We don't even
we don't know. I don't know which way it's gonna go.
That's right. Yeah. They gave you 22 and they might have decided they want to give you 40. Who knows?
So yeah, that whole scenario of him, it made me thinking. You reminded me of a bunch of these memes that you sent me. So I put these.
Yes, that was one of my favorite parts when Carol Baskin is so influential. That was one of my favorite parts during that time, is not only seeing the stretch limo outside of the jail and imagining what is going through his head in, anticipating and being so positive and like waiting for Trump to pardon him, and then hearing things or finding out, I don't know how information gets around or if he was able to watch it on the news, but things like Lil Wayne was pardoned by Trump, right? And then to find out that he wasn't. Yeah, that's right. In prison today after Trump didn't pardon him when everyone said he would. It's things like that. And yes, watching pardon Lil Wayne and Kodak, and he just I love the groups that can show humor and creativity in moments like this, because it's so ridiculous, and so those become the highlights for me when this kind of crap goes on. Is like, what there's creative people out there that see the ridiculousness of all of this the way that we do, and they're likely going to come up with something that makes me laugh, and so I appreciate that. That's too good.
So that was our current event. Obviously, that was really most important thing going on. I know that they're like the leader of, there's foreign leaders that have been assassinated, but nobody's talking about that. No. Really,
it has no impact on the market today, Nick, and that's what it comes back to. Okay, so and hey, frankly, TBD on what's going to happen there. News is still out, and so we're excited to see what's going to happen at the court level for Joe Exotic, so that we can close the chapter on that.
And I would say that if you are not just riveted by Joe Exotic's prison sentence and what's going to happen on that, you might not be that straight.
Oh my
God. Did I get that line right? I was trying to remember that. I was just thinking of that in my head.
That's good enough. I don't even care.
That's one of those classic lines for that. And it was "You ain't that straight. You ain't that straight." Oh goodness. Well, hey, John. So, I thought, getting back first show, we got to knock some rust off. Like we're doing this.
Yeah. Sure.
We're doing this over video. We're doing more of a video emphasis now. Where we used to be mostly audio and some video clips.
That's right.
And this is all getting like done live. So you guys are going to get to witness me screw up the broadcast software from time to time.
Yeah.
I'll hit the wrong button. It'll happen. Yep. So I thought, let's take a softball approach at getting back into the hard hitting issues and Biden commentary.
Perfect.
Not just jump back into podcasting with something super controversial. Like, let's ease back into this, Jon. And
I'm sensing the opposite of what just happened with the current event setup.
Sure. Yeah. Like, let's just go something super easy, super middle of the road,
most people can agree on.
Yes. Not divisive. So a binding, unifying thing that we can all agree on. Okay. And let's talk COVID vaccines, Jon.
Perfect.
So specifically, what kind of, we were talking about this a little bit throughout the week. Saw this article from Politico that came out this week. And I got the link there. It's a little hidden under our banner. I actually, boom, look at that. I can take that banner off.
Oh, nice.
Put it on.
Oh,
I can take it off.
Boom.
I could go just logo if I wanted, Jon. Look at all these things that I can do.
Wow.
I know. It's really something. This is definitely, I'm going to have to disagree with Vanilla Ice, and this broadcast software is a better invention.
That's right. That's right.
90s.
Than Air Jordans.
Yes. And about half the price of those Air Jordans. But so I thought it was interesting here. This was on Politico. And so I just mentioned it's Politico, which is, still mainstream media. I'm not a big fan of mainstream media.
Sure.
Just because they're a business, right? I'm looking at an ad.
That's right.
There's an ad right there by Xfinity Mobile. So, it's case in point that this is a business. And so but I thought it was interesting. This was from Politico. This was not from like a Fox News.
Sure. CNN.
And Politico's supposed to be more, I guess, in the middle. I don't know if they are or not. And so title, potentially a death sentence. White House goes off on the vaccine fear mongers. And there's definitely been a lot of different information, differing of opinions and information referenced over that. Specifically, there's a couple of things in this article that I thought was kind of interesting that stood out to me that I thought would make it podcast worthy here. One was, we are steadfastly, this one just cracked me up. We are steadfastly committed to keeping politics out of the effort to get every American vaccinated so that we can save lives and help our economy further recover. Since when?
Yeah.
Is that new? Like the whole presidential campaign was like about coronavirus, response to it, and like coming vaccines and opinions on vaccines. Like,
I'm still remembering Nancy Pelosi on the subway encouraging people to go visit Chinatown.
Oh that was early on in the pandemic. That was
that's what I'm saying. The entire thing is how can we politicize this? That's been from the start. Right. So it's interesting that now they're steadfastly committed, that the White House is steadfastly committed to keeping politics out of getting every American vaccinated.
It's just crazy to me. I read that comment. I was like, what? And that's not a Democrat versus or Republican thing. They were both doing this the entire time.
100%. Absolutely.
Trump wouldn't wear the masks, wouldn't do like any of those things, and that was all intentional as a statement, right?
It's never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah. It's just, so when I read, we're steadfastly committed in keeping politics out of the effort. No, you're not. Can we at least agree? I don't care if you're
well, right. Is there somebody reading that could read that and go, oh yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Thank
they
you,
really
White House.
have. Yeah,
that's right. And I appreciate your effort in that.
Unlike if Trump had won again, he would have been politicizing it. But, definitely Biden's administration has not. Like, I don't know. Right. How can you not? I don't know. I feel like no matter what allegiance, if you're on the right, if you're on the left, if you're in the middle, like we are, somebody has to read that and go, but whatever. Here's where it got a little alarming.
Okay.
Now, since this article has come back, I will preface this with there's been some news organizations that have walked this statement back for sure.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if that's because this was misrepresented
I see.
By Politico. And again, I mentioned that it's Politico. It wasn't Fox News. Okay.
Right.
And so it's not like Fox News just took a shady source and put something out there. This was Politico. And then other news organizations have been walking this back. So I don't know if it's that this got too much attention. They're like, hey, we didn't want that to get out. let's try to minimize this, or if maybe it really was just misrepresented. I mean, I'm willing to give that benefit of the doubt for sure. But I like this. Biden allied groups, including the Democratic National Committee, are also planning to engage fact checkers more aggressively. Excuse me, and work with SMS carriers to dispel misinformation about vaccines that is sent over social media and text messages. Yeah, that was the one. That was the one that was more alarming to me, was like the text messages. I mean, it's definitely, I felt like especially during the election cycle, the whole misinformation, like what's counted as misinformation and what fact checkers are like conclusions they're coming to was really kind of odd.
I almost was going to say there's no consistency to it, but I think that there is. And in my opinion, it was very, the consistency was left leaning, right?
Yeah, 100%.
It was usually when, colleagues or old friends of mine on social media would post something that was conservative. There would be some, huge banner over the front of it that's like, hey, this has been fact checked and found to be false. But when you go in and actually say, okay, well, let me see why and read about.
Which I love to do. I would actually 100%. Click the fact check and go, okay, well, what was the outcome?
And there's been some times where it's like, yeah, that's wrong. You and I are probably similar, where even if that banner didn't exist, if I had a friend who posted something that felt out there, maybe a little bit conspiracy theory-ish, whatever, I go look myself. I mean, I had a friend, not to rabbit trail too much, but I had a friend, old coworker, that posted something recently, and it was this long write-up from a U.S. judge who had convicted a terrorist that was caught and convicted during like a bombing plot that was not successful in. And it was this whole speech about like that the judge allegedly gave the terrorist at his sentencing, and was like, look, in America, this is who we are and this is what we stand for, and all this stuff, whatever. Well, the preface of this that he posted was like, I bet you've not seen this on the news. This isn't something CNN's going to share. And anytime I read stuff like that, it's like, God, how truthful is what I'm even about to read? So I looked it up, and there was a couple of things that surprised me. One, this was only last week, by the way. One, pretty much the entire speech, word for word, was accurate. And it was what the judge said to this guy during sentencing. What was a little less clear was that this sentencing and his capture and the entire event happened in 2003.
Oh,
and so it's like a week ago. Now we're seeing this thing come around, and it's like, you don't see this on the news. You don't see CNN reporting about this. And what was hilarious was, one,
18-year-old story.
That's right. Well, one, it was 18 years ago, and two, when I searched it out, the entire transcript that was in that post, what the judge said to this guy, start to finish, back in 2003, was published on CNN. And so it's like, okay, so there's some things, right? But what I found is when these fact checkers have been getting involved, especially as it relates to the vaccine, which is what we're talking about, it seems like they would list things as misinformation or false, but when you would check it and read what they came up with and why, it very rarely was false or misinformation. It always felt subjective in the fact checkers' approach as why they flagged it.
I remember during the election cycle, I clicked on one of those fact check things, and I remember seeing the phrase specifically. It literally said that, this comment, blah, 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 while technically true. and then it went on to be just basically like, we don't like what it says. It was was the direction that it went. It actually said the phrase like, while technically true. And I'm like, well, if it's technically true, then
it's not
then
false.
What you don't like. Yeah. You don't like their narrative. You don't like what they're doing with that information.
That's right. That's right.
While technically true. And it was like, I feel like once you're getting subjective, that's the problem with the fact check. And that's where it gets a little dangerous to, we talked about, I know you and I have talked about like the whole, the lab leak theory, like that was debunked, and YouTube was deplatforming people and pulling videos off and all these things, because that was debunked. The lab leak theory it's anti-Asian, it's racist, it's blah, blah, blah. And thank God for Jon Stewart to actually come out on somebody else's show, somebody who has a voice and, can say some things and just call it out and be like, it's literally called the coronavirus lab. Like that was the only theory that actually made any sense.
That's right.
And it was like that, but that would have been misinformation. And that, and again, it's not like they've definitively proven that, right? And I'm not trying to like make that claim. They're still looking that stuff out, but just to declare that has been, that's been debunked, and we put that one to bed. So anything you say on that's misinformation.
I think that it's safe to say that what we're dealing with is the politicizing, right? And the politics of these topics, and the American people as a whole tend to get strung along because as a whole, I'm going to keep going back to this, we're dumb. Like people don't apply critical thinking. They don't do their own research. And so you end up, if you only deal in headlines, then what happens is this whole thing breaks out. It's the Wuhan lab. And that seems to be the strongest case, right? Is that, well, okay, this originated in Wuhan or Wuhan. I'm probably butchering that. And there's a coronavirus lab in the town, maybe a connection. But then you have somebody like, I don't know, maybe. Then you have somebody like Trump, who everybody loves to hate. And he comes out and starts calling this the China virus. And now it's, how do we counter that narrative because we don't like it? Because for whatever all of these reasons are, we don't like that he's saying that. And so we have to counter that with something else. And that's when you get people that say, there's no way it could have happened. And
100%.
Tons of ways it could have happened, but we don't want to look at that. We want the narrative to be that there's no way, because it counters Trump, who we don't like, right? Like there's all of that, and that's what we end up dealing with. And my concern when we're talking about the White House, frankly, stepping in and pushing fact checking that's going to be happening at a social media level and being involved in that, is who gets to decide what misinformation is. And one of the things that stood out to me at the beginning of this, if you all remember, is Fauci making it very clear that there's zero indication that masks actually help, right?
Right.
That help contain the spread or anything like that.
You're not referencing those emails that people dug into, and then there was people were trying to read between the lines in emails. That was just literally what he said on the news.
Yeah, later.
Masks won't have. This was at the beginning. Masks don't help. And then basically came out, contradicted that, and full on admitted, well, I just said that so people wouldn't go buck nuts and buy all the masks.
Later, right? Yeah. But I know in the beginning when he said that zero indication masks are going to be helpful, there were people, I was likely one of them, that said or took the attitude of, he's obviously only saying this because he's trying to curb the knee-jerk reaction that Americans have, and he doesn't want them going out and buying up all the masks, which they were anyways, right? Which is probably why I think he ended up saying that in the beginning. He doesn't want them buying up all the masks like we did toilet paper, and impact first responders and hospitals from having access to these materials. But it's so obvious to me that that's what was happening. And yet, I
didn't draw that conclusion.
Gotcha.
I assumed that the guy who was the medical expert, that he would get on camera and just say what was true.
Yeah.
But when it came out after that, he's like, no, I was just saying that so people wouldn't go buy everything, because you guys can't be trusted with toilet paper. I mean, this is why we can't have nice things, guys. I was like, so that's what immediately caused all that division, naturally.
So this is where I go then, because if at that time we had Big Brother who was involved in censoring texts and social media posts, you would have heard this from Fauci and said, oh, okay, cool. Like, The medical guy in charge says masks are ineffective, so I'm not going to worry about masks. If I send a post on Facebook or I text you and I say, this is what I think is really happening, right? Somebody would have shut that down and said,
it would have been flagged.
Misinformation, right?
Yeah.
And maybe covered my post on social media, deleted it outright, or who knows now what they're talking about SMS. Maybe you would have gotten an additional text because they're like monitoring for flag words or keywords on my text. I have no idea what that is even supposed to look like. But maybe you get some additional text that says, hey, misinformation. Your friend Jon is conspiracy theorist and crazy. 6 months later, it comes out that no, that was fact. So who gets to decide what is misinformation? Because we've had multiple cases, especially just talking about vaccines without even going outside of this bubble, multiple situations where what you could have called misinformation in the beginning is shown to be fact later on.
Well, and that's been the hard part. My next door neighbor, she's a physician's assistant. And, she said, what's been challenging is that the general public doesn't understand how the scientific medical process typically works, that it is a trial and error process.
Right.
It's just that people were looking for concrete answers. And because of things like misinformation and debunked and all this, things were being presented like it was hard fact. And then later, like new CDC data shows that, you're probably not going to get from the air if you're just outside or, some of these things. And so it's like the goalposts kept moving and yet you want to like definitively fact check these things. I think so. I do want to, in all fairness, I do want to say that some of the articles that have come back after this Politico article was posted, what they're saying is that maybe what was being referenced wasn't just like yours and my like individual text to each other, that it was maybe those like mass SMS broadcast text. So like you can, using apps like Twilio, or there's a bunch of them out there where you can, you get some of those spam texts that just show up.
Right.
That maybe they were wanting to flag those if there was misinformation being spread that way. Again, misinformation is still subjective. And, where does freedom of speech come into play? Even if somebody's saying something that's stupid, I tend to err on the side of let the stupid person say the stupid thing. And I want to believe that people are smart enough to look at that person and go, that guy's a friggin' idiot.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, that doesn't always seem to be true.
We are all served by allowing stupidity to come to light. Instead of pushing it down into, dark hidden places so that those thoughts can grow. I mean, you need free thinking in order for somebody to say, hey, here's an idea, and everybody to pile back on and say, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And that's that's how we grow. Right. And so no, I believe in free speech. Absolutely. And I don't like the idea that the government is censoring or even being involved in that arena. Starts getting into propaganda at a certain point.
Well, I mean, and this goes back to I was talking with somebody about Edward Snowden this last week.
Sure.
And his whole thing, his whistleblower, and he's been villainized for that, even though it's come out and said like, the stuff that he reported, the government was overreaching. And that's the thing. You go all the way back to the Patriot Act after 9/11. And I know you served in the military, after that time and all of that. And like, you were out there, playing your part, on the global fighting terrorism and making sure that things were, that people were protected and that our rights are free and all that. But at the time, I didn't think anything of it. I was one of those conservative 20-year-old kids saying,
sure,
you could go through all my stuff. You can monitor my phone calls. I don't have anything to hide.
That's right. That's right. The government wants to look in on me. They're just going to be bored. So let them look.
And it's interesting that it's like, that was the conservative people's opinion at that time. And now it's by and large, it would be more conservative people that would be deemed as spreading misinformation in their texts. And it would be like the same people that champion that Patriot Act are the ones that would essentially be like flagged by some of these things. It's like, to me, that's the danger of letting some of that stuff go. That's why I'm annoyed that our governor here in Washington State, Jay Inslee, won't let go of those emergency powers.
It never happens. Yeah.
And I'll be honest, like the year before, I voted for the law that was enacted for him to be able to even grab those emergency powers when something's deemed an emergency. I voted for it because I was like, all I was thinking about naively, John, and I'm willing to admit like where I'm wrong and where I'm growing as a person. All I was thinking about was Mount St. Helens. Like, yeah, you know what? If the mountain blows and all of our like senators can't get together, or the tsunami that's supposed to wipe us all off the map here, and yet we still live here. That coming tsunami, like, it would probably be a good idea for the governor to be able to get some help in some of those things.
Right.
Never foresaw 2 weeks to flatten the curve turns out to 18 months. And, he still has those emergency powers to just make decisions. Because the thing with the power grab is nobody ever likes to give it back. And we saw that with the Patriot Act. Bush enabled that. And at the time I was like, let's stop terrorism. But then you hear about the things that Snowden reported and and that's not a Democratic or Republican thing because Obama didn't roll it back.
That's right.
Trump didn't roll it back.
Right.
Biden's not rolling it back. Like once you give up, once you concede some of those things, you don't get that stuff back. And that's what concerns me when they're talking about regulation and, and regulating more. And now there's even people saying like, who was it? I think it was a politician this week. I should probably do a better job of making sure I'm talking informed, who was saying that, like, I believe if you get banned from one social media platform, you should be banned from all of them. Now she's talking specifically, she wants Trump banned from everything. But I don't like that. Cause if you just put that blanket statement out there, like if that becomes the norm, you don't get that back. That never comes back.
That's right.
And I think this is like an example, not that they're doing this. And I'm not saying that they're monitoring their, our texts and all that kind of stuff, but like once you concede that ground, man, you don't get that back. And that's where I think people need to stand opposed to that stuff.
I mean, you're making a case for, the Second Amendment, which I mean, I'm a huge proponent of. I was a marksman instructor in the Marine Corps. I shoot regularly as a hobby. It's something that I'm passionate about. I train my children in firearm safety. And that's the big push, right? Is everybody talks about common sense gun laws, but we know that the government has a history of once they enact something and they get some sort of leverage that impacts our rights, they don't give it up, and it only gets worse, right? And the way that they do that is by turning these topics into really emotional topics. And that's what's happening today with the vaccine, right? Is we're creating an environment, or we've created, it's not that it's already happened. We've created an environment where people are on one side of the fence or the other. And like you think, I got the vaccine, I'm following the CDC recommendations. Like, I'm doing all of these things because I care about human life. And it's not about me because I know that I'm low risk, but it's about all the people around me that are less, fortunate than I am. And so it's this moral high ground thing I'm doing for the good of the people to go out there and get this and not ask questions. So conversely, if you question or you don't get the vaccine, right, at all, like you are
once
selfish.
You've positioned yourself as like, I'm a lifesaver.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So if you question it or you don't get it, you're the exact opposite. You're selfish. You're a monster. You don't care about anybody. You don't care about the sanctity of human life. You don't care about anything. Right. And so that's how you end up getting arguments like you just need to trust the science, which is so stupid. Because science is about asking questions. Yeah. Science is throwing up a theory, and let's start challenging that, right?
That statement has driven me nuts this entire time. So like during the pandemic, I was teaching at a public school, and so we kept hearing the phrase a lot, we have to listen to the science. And Governor Jay Inslee, we have to listen to science this. And I'm like, okay, first of all, science doesn't talk. Okay. So
who is this guy? Who's science that I keep hearing about?
Okay. Is it Bill Nye with his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering? Is that the science guy we should be listening to about viruses? That's always my pet peeve. Bill Nye, the mechanical engineering guy.
Guy.
Yeah. But like science puts out theories, and then they're tested and disproved and peer reviewed and argued and all this stuff. And so science is subjective. I mean, how many times has eggs been good for you or bad for you? How many times has milk been good or bad for you? Like science is conflicted. I read articles that say drinking coffee is bad for you. Then I read articles that say drinking coffee fights cancer. And I'm like, I'm going to choose to believe that one because I like it. And so that whole, like, we got to listen to science. And it's like, it's this subjective trial and error process. And you're telling me I have to listen to it like it's all been solved. It goes back to that whole thing of like, what is misinformation? Are we sure we can still count on this information 3 months from now, 3 weeks from now? Like, that stuff. So, that has driven me nuts. This, like, every time somebody says, well, we have to listen to science.
Yeah. Science is what got us away from, when I don't feel well, I stick leeches on my body.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Like, it was science, because it was somebody saying, is this really working? Is this really the right thing for us to do right now? Like,
it's believed George Washington, who was big into bloodletting, that what actually killed him was that he was sick and that bloodletting exasperated his condition. But that was science. He was listening to science.
He was trusting the science at the time. And it's ridiculous. And so what I'm seeing, how that's manifested now is, CDC has it on their site, right? Very, very clear. If you've been vaccinated and you're fully vaccinated, which means whatever, depending on whatever like version you have, you've gotten all the doses and you've waited the appropriate amount of time after the latest dose, right? If you're fully vaccinated, then you get to pick back up all of the activities that you could do prior to the pandemic. I mean, it's on the CDC's website. I encourage anybody to go look at it. No social distancing required.
I was in Vegas last week. Yeah. And it was like back to normal.
Yes.
It was great.
No masks required, right?
Just at the airport.
Well, yeah, there's a few places actually. But those are based on like government requirements. It has nothing to do with what the CDC is stating from a health standpoint. They're saying these places it's still required because there's government restrictions in place, right? But otherwise, you're free. That has prompted local government or state government to start removing restrictions. And
it's been great.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Like Oregon and Washington, who I thought never would lift restrictions, started lifting restrictions and said, great, as of June 30th, you don't have to wear a mask. You don't have to socially distance if you're fully vaccinated. Okay.
Which has made it, now that I don't wear a mask at the grocery store, it's made it hard to like hide and not be recognized by somebody you don't want to talk to. Again, that was one thing I really liked about masks. Is you pull that mask up high and you pull that hat down, you're just like, beep, 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 can't stand that dude. And now they're like, hey, how's it going? You're like, dang it.
On the flip side, I don't have to feel like I'm mean mugging everybody when I walk by them. I can do the like white guy smile, the little like head nod with the cheesy smile, and they know that I'm smiling at them. Like, that's nice.
Remember at the beginning of the pandemic when you go to the grocery store and you were immediately judging whether or not you think somebody could survive coronavirus? Like, every person that I pass would be like, that dude would definitely be a goner.
That's right. So now that restrictions are lifted, there are businesses, well, and people, frankly, but I'll focus on businesses. There are businesses that are basically taking a stance of, we're going to continue enacting all of the restrictions and requirements that existed prior. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking the business's right to do that. Okay. I think businesses, they can run their business however they want.
Yep.
I'll give you an example though. This came up actually recently, just in the last week or so. My wife is getting some tattoo work done. And she found a new tattoo place and a new artist. And she, it was her first time going there. And she had waited weeks to get into this appointment. It's a really, good artist. Well, she shows up. This is after restrictions have been lifted. Her and I are both fully vaccinated, so that like we check all of the boxes. She shows up to her appointment and texts me because she gets there and the door's locked. and somebody comes out when they see her at the door, and it's like, nope, we need you to wait here, like use these hand wipes. Okay, now come in and wipe this pen down. You can use this pen. You need to wear your mask the entire time. She's getting ready to sit down for like a 5-6 hour tattoo.
Oh, geez.
And it's like, you got to wear your mask the whole time. It's like, well, yeah, but I'm vaccinated. Nope, that doesn't matter. We're following all the, like, well, no, but those restrictions are lifted.
Yeah, and you're not following you're not listening to science.
That's right. But here's what happens when you make something personal and you create an emotional narrative tied to an act, that now these businesses, or the well-intentioned people that are running the businesses, have an attitude of like, we're doing this for the greater good, right? There's only really two options here. You're continuing to do it because you're staying on the moral high ground of like, we're good people that are doing the right thing now above and beyond what the CDC and the state is requiring, or you're taking the stance of we don't trust people and we think that people are going to abuse this and not wear a mask because they don't want to, even though they're not vaccinated. And since, we can't really require, although I guess technically businesses could do that as well, but since we're not going to require somebody to show proof that they've been vaccinated, we're just going to keep the restrictions. So I was texting back and forth with her, and I talked to a coworker of mine, and it cracked me up because I was just venting to him my frustration about this. And I told my wife, I said, standing at that door, knowing I'm getting ready to go in and sit for 5 or 6 hours, which is a decent chunk of money when you're talking about a tattoo, to have to go through that when I'm vaccinated and restrictions have been lifted on the government. So this is only the business that's deciding to do this. Without a second thought, I would have said, hey, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to go find another artist.
Yeah.
Knowing for a fact that means potentially months of waiting longer, months of finding another artist that I could work with, that, I could create an appointment with, knowing that all of the waiting that I had done was all now for nothing, would not have hesitated. And when I told him that, I was like, hey, yeah, I told my wife, like, I'd leave. He said to me, are you really going to be that guy? Like, are you really that guy? And dude, it pisses me off. Like, what do you mean? I should be the poster child of what to do. I socially distanced during the pandemic. I didn't go, we had our groceries delivered, we rarely saw anybody until, hey, we got vaccinated. We're fully vaccinated. We even then, being vaccinated, wore masks because they were required at the government level. The government's now removed those restrictions. Like, I've done everything that they've asked of me. And at this point, if businesses are going to take that attitude, like, hey, I respect your choice. I respect your right as a business owner to do that. I'm going to take my business somewhere else because I have those rights as a consumer. And I don't think that should make me that guy, right? Like, so, I don't know.
A couple of thoughts. One, I agree with you in that, like, you did everything right. Like, you listened to the science.
Yeah.
You said vaccine, will help you. Obviously, it's not 100%. It's not foolproof. And people like to point that out. You can still get it with sure. 100%. You get the flu shot, you can still get the flu, right? Like,
That's right.
And so, yeah, no doubt. And so, but you listened to the science, you got the vaccine and all of that. Now you're wanting to still listen to the new science that came out and said, because you did that, it's now safe for you to not have your mask on.
That's right.
Like,
that's right.
That's frustrating. I also find it humorous though. And so, like, for those those give you a little window into like Jon and I's relationship. So when Jon gets that text, he texts me. He's like, all right, I need to run something by you. Now, from time to time, I get a text from Jon Simmons that says, okay, I need your input on this, or I need to run something by you. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be great.
Sure.
Like, and it usually has to do with, am I being an a-hole? Like, kind of,
that's right. Yeah.
It's almost exclusively right. Like, am I overreacting here? Or, but so you sent me that scenario and you're like, what, do you think I'm wrong? Am I being that guy? And my initial response to you was like, Jon, there has never, ever been a question. I can't even believe that you would question somebody saying that you would ever be that guy. Of course you're that guy.
Yes.
I've never seen anybody ever be more willing to sign up and be that guy to dig in on principle for anything in my entire life. You are that guy. You are that guy of guys. That guy.
I will give that to you. Granted, I cannot dispute that. I do not mind. I do not mind when there are opportunities for conflict. Right.
Sure.
I don't shy away from those, and I don't shy away from calling a spade when I think it is one. To me, it's the frustration that this was the moment where I felt like I'm on the right side. Right. According to the cultural narrative, I've done the right things.
That guy is the male version of Karen.
That's right. And so like I'm not the asshole here. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Sure.
Like I'm not I did the right things. And so now you are taking it to another level and putting increased requirements for a couple of potential reasons. And I think you're the guy, you know what I mean? Like whatever it's going to be. And it's frustrating to me because again, it's either the only ones that make sense to me. You're either taking the moral high ground, right? And you're saying, no, we care about people. And you obviously don't because you're walking around without your mask, regardless of what the CDC says and government restrictions that are put in place. You're either doing that, which makes me not like you, right? Or have some conflict there. Or you're taking the stance of, well, we're being better safe than sorry because we don't trust people. And we think that, you know, you might not be vaccinated and you just don't want to wear your mask because who does?
I'm happy to show my vaccine card.
I don't know that like I am. I have a problem. I have a problem
if that
with
was the thing, but if it meant I got to take my mask off for 6 hours while getting a tattoo, I'd be like, if I can show you proof, will you let me take it off? I understand.
I'd still want to go somewhere else. Forget them, dude. I mean, no, absolutely. Who the hell are they to try and ask? Like, I don't think it's appropriate, right? I am vaccinated. I do have proof. I don't think it's appropriate that a business requires me to demonstrate that proof. I don't require them, you know, the cashier that's checking out my groceries to prove to me documentation that he doesn't have herpes. Right. Like I think it's ridiculous. Like at what point, if we follow these what seem like reasonable asks to their logical conclusion, at what point do we say enough is enough? Right?
Well, and in all fairness, and this is like, you know, I'm in real time. I'm having a learning moment. This again, I'm going back to the 20-year-old kid who didn't have a problem with the Patriot Act.
That's right.
And so we literally just talked about this. It's right. Yeah, I get it. When you start making those concessions,
show your papers, man. That's right. Yeah. Show your papers. And now what'll happen, and look at God, this is probably sink us in the first episode. But
let's go.
Yeah. At some point, it's going to be, okay, now you've shown your papers. So you get some sort of like special armband. You know what I mean? That shows like, no, I can just walk around freely now. And dude, historically, that is a very bad thing. We don't need the government stepping in.
The extreme for that, John, is the Christian view of like, that's the mark of the beast.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Like it's just leading towards that mark of the beast.
That's right. And so, you know, what's driven me crazy to take it in a different direction, but still, you know, probably going to piss some people off is the colleagues. I would even say friends, people that I care very much about. You know, the people that would have that attitude of like, well, no, I want to either have the restrictions because I don't trust people or require proof because I don't trust people.
Sure.
Historically, in my experience with my circle of friends that share that thought, they are literally the same people that would have an attitude of requiring an ID to vote is racist.
Sure.
And so it just makes no sense to me. It's like all across this entire event, it's hypocrisy just abounds, you know? And so, I kind of want to give the finger to all of it and say, look, I did the things. And so I would take my money somewhere else. And if that makes me the guy, then I'm that guy.
I have a couple of thoughts. So like one, when you talk about that moral high ground, I don't like, so I keep seeing ads on Hulu and YouTube and stuff about getting the vaccines, right?
Sure.
And everything all of those are positioned about it. It is that divisive, like, if you care about people, you'll get this.
That's right.
Rather than focusing on what the real issue is that there's people who don't trust the science behind it. So rather than being like a marketing campaign where you're saying, hey, this technology, this mRNA technology, I know that it feels like it came out overnight, but this was actually, and this is what, like, I talked to my doctor rather than just like read comments in Facebook. Yes. I thought it would be a good idea to talk to my doctor about it. You know, and like, he was the one that told me, I know it seems like this came around really quickly. This technology had been around for about 10 years, over 10 years. Like, what was it? I don't remember if it was SARS or it was one of those like earlier ones, bird flu or one of those, swine flu. Maybe it was swine flu, where they developed it. And then literally, so they had that technology ready. All they needed to do was just get the exact, I don't know, it's not the right term, but like the recipe or whatever. Right. Forget the fact that nobody ever questions that they literally come up with a new flu shot every year.
That's right.
Right. So they figure out these viruses and stuff and they do this. But rather than tackle people's like not understanding and maybe not believing that it's safe, it's just that pure emotional rip the heart open and either you care or you don't care.
That's right.
And I don't like it because that just politicizes the whole vaccine thing.
Yes.
We don't want to politicize it. We're steadfastly committed to keeping politics out of the effort to get every American. No, you're not. You're politicizing it by that, you know?
That's right.
I got vaccinated. I was teaching in a school. They were going to bring students back. I knew by the end of the year, they were going to bring all the students back. They were pretty determined to do that. Yeah. I knew, I don't typically get the flu shot every year because if I get the flu, I miss, maybe a day. I hardly ever get the flu anyways, as John coughs.
One could argue you're low risk.
Sure. Right. And so, but I did get this one largely out of convenience. And maybe that's why I don't mind showing proof that I have it so that I get extra things. Is because for me, it was only because of convenience. It was, if I get coronavirus, I miss 10 days of work. Automatically, I can't go to work for 10 days.
You can't go back. Right.
Not only that, but my wife, who was teaching at the same school building, can't go to work for 10 days. My kids, who just got back into the classrooms and they hated the online learning, then had to go back to online learning for 2 weeks, for 10 days. And I was like, no, I'm just going to get this so that they don't have to do that. Right. Like if that protects me from that.
Sure.
And so for me, it was merely just convenience. Plus I do work around, like when I was teaching, I'd have 150 little virus riddled Petri dish kids. Like I never got more colds in my life than I did in teaching. Cause like just these guys, hey Higgins, what's up? And just like, oh dude. I mean, kids are disgusting and you get 150 of them together and so for me, it was all about that. I do find it funny how many people are opposed to the vaccine. And again, I don't care if you get the vaccine or you don't. I honestly don't care. If you got the vaccine, it doesn't make you a hero.
That's right.
You made a choice to get a vaccine.
And if you don't, it doesn't make you a monster.
No, exactly. Like I am completely agnostic on that. I don't feel if you're trying to take extra precautions in your business because you don't trust people, then get the vaccine. Like if you're vaccinated and you're much more likely to be safe,
require your employees to be vaccinated.
Sure. Either get it or don't. And we're at the point now where it's like, open it all back up. There's a vaccine. It's free. If you want it, go get it. If you're afraid, go get it. If you're high risk, go get it. If you're not, or you don't want it, then don't get it. I don't care. But if you get coronavirus, even if I can be a carrier of it, which they say, well, you can still be a carrier.
Oh, sure.
If I give you coronavirus and I don't have any symptoms and you do because you didn't get it, I'm not going to feel bad for you.
Right.
Right. Like even if you get sick, like, hey, there was a vaccine available that was going to mitigate the effects of this thing. Like you make your decision and that's it. Like you're not a hero if you get it. You're not a monster if you don't. I love the way you said that. What does make me just like a little curious is it's interesting to me how many people are suddenly so concerned with long-term health effects of their choices, John.
Okay.
And specifically, I've noticed it tends to be, I'm seeing a lot of people that I know personally who live largely unhealthy lifestyles. I'm talking everything from like
largely was the
okay. Well, so some of it is being like obese, morbidly obese.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, like, I'll see these people like, I'm not getting a vaccine that we don't know the long-term health benefits, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
that's right.
We do know the long-term health benefits of being morbidly obese. It's that you're going to die of heart disease at a young age. So it's curious to me that people, like, I'm glad people are being concerned with long-term health benefits, right? That's why my wife and I spend extra money and try to buy as much organic food as we can, because we don't like to eat Roundup in our food, which causes cancer. That has been proven. But it's curious to me that the line drawn in the sand is at this vaccine that can prevent this disease that largely affects obese people more than anyone else. And that's where you're suddenly going to dig your heels in and be like, well, we don't know the long-term health benefits. Meanwhile, you've been eating genetically modified like food that's been doused in Roundup, for crying out loud.
That's right.
And it's like,
you got some obese guy smoking cigarettes in his car with the kids in the back seat, slamming down some Carl's Jr., just like, hey, I'm not going to be a big guinea pig for the government. I care way too much about my long-term health.
That's right. Supposedly Subway's tuna fish doesn't actually have any tuna in it. You'll eat that, but hey,
we
this
don't care,
vaccine,
because it tastes okay, but I'm not getting that vaccine. Who knows what that could do? Who knows? Dude, I just saw an article yesterday about different sunscreens. There's like 4 different versions of Johnson & Johnson sunscreen. I
saw that last night.
That have cancer-causing chemicals in them, so they got recalled.
Neutrogena, Aveeno, Johnson, like there's a bunch of them, and I'm like, oh great, I've been putting that on. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not claiming to be the epitome of health, although I did start doing CrossFit again. John, do you want me to talk to you about CrossFit?
I know.
Would you like to pledge your life? Would you like about it? Would you be interested in pledging your life to your health lord and savior of CrossFit?
No, for real though. Did you start again?
I did.
Okay,
actually.
We'll talk about it on another episode. But
it'll come up.
That's right. That's right.
But no, I forgot what I was going to say with that. I just started thinking CrossFit.
No, it's that you're not the epitome of health, right? Obviously, there's things that we do that are not perfectly healthy.
100%. I was in Vegas last week, right? Cigars, whiskey.
Sure.
More,
you're on vacation, man. City of sin.
I'm not. So I just all I say, and I believe every person
blow. Okay, no big deal. No big deal. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I hear you, man.
I did get to go see Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle's first big comedy show back, and
I bet that was awesome.
And it did smell a little stank in there. When they came out, it was like, it was funny. But no, and I'm not. Look, if somebody who is overweight or unhealthy or has, compounding, lots of health issues, if they choose not to get the vaccine, again, I say that's your right. Okay. It's just interesting to me how many people draw the line and use the case of like, well, we don't know if that thing's healthy. It's like,
so not to,
I don't know, but I'm inconsistent too. I'll admit that I'm a hypocrite. I stand here like a good hypocrite and point the finger at others.
No, but it does tie.
But it's my show, darn it. Get your own podcast if you want to point fingers at us.
Talking to your own microphone, pal. It does tie back to what we were talking about with politicizing everything, right? Because what's happening now is people will counter that argument with, well, big is beautiful. And like, how dare you say that being obese is unhealthy? And it's we're talking about hypocrisy here. Sure. It's unreal, right? That those are the types of, and it's the same people that make those arguments that big is beautiful and we need to celebrate all different body types. And we're praising obese people and completely ignoring the science about how unhealthy that is for us as humans. But will push that you need to follow the science or trust the science over here. It's so polarizing that it just feels like logic and critical thinking have exited stage left. It does not matter anymore. It's, what does this person think? And because I know that I don't like them and they're on the other side of the battle lines that have been drawn, I need to have an argument that is exactly opposed to theirs. And that's the environment, and so it doesn't surprise me. I agree with you that it's hilarious that there are people out there who obviously don't seem to indicate in any other areas of their lives that they care about long-term health, but are then using that as a crutch to not get a vaccine.
And I have a friend who he and his wife are adamantly opposed to ever getting it. And I respect them on that, because like what they say, we don't know the long-term health benefits. They also eat super clean, healthy, all organic foods. They even go as far as like, we don't like Bluetooth speakers because, read some things that maybe that can mess up. And I'm like, you guys are consistent. You're consistent, like all across the board. Like I totally respect you having that opinion. Like I respect your opinion on that.
Right. Even if I think some of your opinions might be a little bit outside the norm and maybe venturing into conspiracy theorist, who judges on that? Like, that doesn't hurt me that you have those opinions. And for all we know, 6 months from now, your opinion could actually come out as really informed.
Hey,
and just ahead of the rest of us.
If I end up with health complications later down the road and it's deemed that it was because of this vaccine, I will admit I stand corrected.
That's right.
If some of those people who were saying that are still alive for me to be able to apologize to.
That's right. Because chances are, just based on how we're living our lives, you guys are going down well before I am. So
that's right. Because I do CrossFit. I don't know if you know. No, it would be nice if we lived in a world where things weren't politicized, John. But if we did, we would literally have nothing to talk about on this podcast.
That's right.
So I think that we probably beat that to death. You got anything else you want to say on that, or should we call it?
No, God, I always have more I could say on a topic, but no, I think we beat that horse into the ground. And the topic about our culture today being dumb is going to be able to be applied to many more subtopics. So we'll
and
beat this horse again.
Maybe just like we inspired many other mad podcasts. Maybe we will inspire some other Jon and Nick shows of people to just point out things that we say that are dumb.
Yes.
And I welcome that.
That's right. That's right.
That would be fun. So, hey, it's good to be back. It's good to be back doing this with you. I look forward to many more episodes. I know we both got some vacations coming up, so we may hit a little ripple, but
we'll see. We'll see.
It won't be because we're canceling the show.
That's right. If we do, it's because in August, both of us are going to be out at separate times, but for a week or so, we might be able to figure something out where we record, something in advance and can release. But we'll see, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Awesome. Well, hey, I think that's it. I think we should call it I almost said for the Mad Podcast, but no. You have listened to the Jon and Nick Show. For the Jon and Nick Show, I'm Nick.
I'm Jon.
And we'll see you next time.